Myoa has been described as a Christian in diary. Her music is deep and soulful. She joins us now on Turning Point. Hello, Myoa.
Hi, Myoa.
Now, before we talk, full disclosure, you are one of my babies. We have sang together.
Yes, we have. I've been honored and humbled to sing with you, yeah.
They're all just finding out now. And they're going, what,
okay.
what?
Yes.
So, sweetheart, you live in America, but started life in Lagos. Then you lived a chunk of your life in London.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Tell us about the formative years in Nigeria and how that affected your faith and your introduction to music.
So I was born in Nigeria, grew up in a Christian family home. My father and mother do sing, and you know, prayer was very important in my household, just like music. And in my, well, we call it primary school, I was actually in the choir, and the music teacher then, who's no longer with us, I told him I loved to sing, and he, you know, kind of took an, you know, interest. And I told him, you know what, one day I do have a song. I want to, you know, let you hear the song. I think I was about, what, eight years old then, 8 or 9. And I sang the song to him, and he was like, wow, this is fantastic. I actually want us to use this in the school assembly. And he, you know, played the piano and taught the school, and we used it. And so that's when I was like, you know what, I really do love music. This is what I want to do. And just telling my parents and just, you know, and
so
they're like...
when you told your parents, what did they say? Because these are Nigerian parents.
I know. They didn't mind, because I was so young then, and normally I would write on the blackboard. We had a board at home at the dining table. And
that speaks volumes, because if they had blackboard at home, that means it was like academia.
Yes.
It's doctor, lawyer.
I know.
They probably thought, okay, 8-year-old, she'll get over it.
She'll get over it. But then I would organize mini concert with my sisters, like, and we'll sing to them. So they knew, you know, I would write lyrics and things. I was constantly singing, and then eventually, you know, they had me take piano lessons, and
so this is all their fault. Really.
It's yes, mum and
so let's
dad,
skip forward. You're in London. You're in a church. You're singing in churches.
Yes.
But then you moved to America because the spaces your music lives in, it's not typical church.
It's not.
You're out there in what we'll call the public space. Why the transition from worship leader in London to what you are?
So, faith is very important to me. God is number one, definitely. But when I would write songs or think about the songs I would want to write, or the message, it just came from a very personal place, and it didn't feel like it was just for the church. So I wanted to be able to write songs that other people could relate to, where I could, you know, sing it in a church setting or sing it outside non-church setting in, you know, secular world, as you would call it, and everyone can kind of relate to it. So I felt more drawn towards the outside world, if you want to put it that way.
But that said, like we said, we have sung together. We've done church conventions together. I mean, recently we did...
Where was it? In
Baltimore, we were in.
That was fun.
So you still sing in church, still do your thing. But what are some of the stories you've heard? Because I remember being in LA once and speaking to you. At that point, you were involved with Universal Music, and you still work with the lady who runs Universal Music now. What are some of the things you've heard from people as you've been in the public square with your music? Some things that you've heard that's made you think, yes, this is why I'm here.
Yes. So I think this probably started when I started performing live, you know, putting myself out there. I did get, you know, I was working at Universal, and, you know, as an intern that's where I met my manager, you're right, Rhoda Lawrence. But that's, you know, I also went to school, you know, to study music production and vocal performance. And then when I really got my band and started performing, I think that's when people would say, Myoa, like, you're very free-spirited on stage. Like, we connect with you, such an expressionist. Like, I connect with your voice, when you're singing the lyrics, like, I just get drawn into listening. And so it made me feel like, you know what, yeah, this is definitely my zone where I want to be. It just made me feel comfortable in just hearing what people would say, that they're actually listening. Okay,
so that's the good side. On the flip side, though, what are some of the things you've heard from church folks who maybe think, Myoa, you know, that dress is too short. You should really be in church, singing worship to our God and King.
Yeah, I mean, I've not had anyone directly come and tell me. I've seen things on, you know, social media, or people indirectly say things through other people, but I think I've just learned to know that if I feel like God's chosen me to do it and I'm comfortable doing it this way, and I think as long as my personal relationship with God is firm and I don't feel guilty or feel wrong for dressing in a certain way or singing songs that may not necessarily have the word Jesus in it, because I know my message is still very clear. And so even though I hear all these things, or it doesn't in a way bother me, because what's important to me is what I'm doing and what I feel like he gives me the okay.
Okay, so your message is very clear, and your message is?
My message is one that wants to bring hope and inspiration to people, that through my messages through my lyrics, you can kind of feel and understand, like, I'm going through the same thing, and Myoa's been through it, because my songs are really personal. Myoa's been through it. She's also a Christian, but then she's also, she sings in the outside world. So I feel what she's singing about. So I have hope, I have joy. It's really all about, I want people to smile. I want people to have joy. I want them to listen to Myoa's song and be like, oh, I'm just in this, like, I'm okay. Everything's going to be okay.
So do we get to experience some of your Nigerianness? Because you've got this eclectic blend of Nigerian experience, British experience, now American experience, Texan experience. Oh my goodness. Do we get all that in your music?
Yeah, my music's got, so for instance, I have an EP, and it's actually produced by a Nigerian singer-songwriter, producer, Kobum Sisukwa. So he's the one that kind of understood my sound, because I wanted something that wasn't like, the riffs and all the other things that you hear from typical songs. So I'm very into like the instrumentation, the musicality, the feel of it, So it's kind of like a blend of Africanism, I guess British, maybe if I'm singing, but it's kind of like world, I think. So anyone in the different can kind of feel that. It's like soul pop jazz, but it's got that world feel to it.
Okay, so soul pop jazz. Well,
that's why I call it soul pop jazz.
Soul pop jazz with the hope of Jesus in it.
With the hope of Jesus in it, yeah.
Myoa,
definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing with us on Turning Point.
Thank you so much for having me.